Hello, everybody, and welcome to Todd and Shane's Cloudy Podcast, episode 434, recorded live June 5th, 2019. Hello, Shane.
Hi, Todd.
Hey, so I've been meaning to say, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I've been meaning to start at the beginning, and maybe this is the production thing I was thinking about, to mention at the beginning of this podcast, for every podcast you listen to, if you go to toddclint.com/podcast, and then the number, so in this case, podcast 434, we'll have all of the show notes, all the links that we talk about, any of that kind of stuff. You can hit that anytime. So if you want to stop listening right now, you can. Just go to that link, and it'll have all the topics and the links and stuff we talked about.
Most of me doesn't believe that anyone listens to this show anymore, period. I can't imagine why they would. So
I mean, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know why anybody would either. But in case, my mom, good to see you. Mom, you can go out to podcast 434. Good shout out to that.
Very cool. Well, so speaking of shout outs, before you tell us how great SysKit is, because we know that's one of your favorite topics, one of our most important pieces. So Todd has this lovely SysKit logo on the wall, and so if you're only a listener, then it's kind of hard to appreciate it. And we've always done a good job of tormenting because it's pretty crooked. It's a piece of paper with...
It is not that bad.
I'm thinking one of his kids probably colored it in. It looks pretty bad. No reflection on the folks at SysKit, right? It is not their fault. It is 100% Todd's.
Let's be clear. Point that gnarly finger of blame right at me.
But so one of the things I did this week with the image and the two images side by side is I got our two logos to touch because mine is perfectly straight. Todd's is Todd's.
Also perfectly straight.
And so Brett did a good job of just pointing out that it really shows your ability to bring some professional ineptitude to its finest.
Yeah, Brett, let me just say nobody likes a suck up, especially when they're sucking up to Shane. So just knock that off. It encourages his bad behavior. I have to work with this guy all the time. I don't need this. But yeah, and I did talk to the folks at SysKit at the SharePoint conference about my logo, and they love it. They think it's great. They did offer, though, some ability to make it even better, they think. So I have an email that I should send off to them to get that perhaps an even better SysKit sign.
Yeah, and they thought it was so much better. And when you offered to just go ahead and take care of getting a nicer logo, what were their exact words, Todd?
Their exact words were, Todd, your time is too important to bother with trifles like that. We will send you one. And I'm like, no, I will get one. They're like, no, we will take care of it. You are too important to take care of this. That's what they said. That's, I'm not even paraphrasing. I'm pretty sure that was exact words.
Is that Eastern European for hell no?
My Croatian is not very good, so you never know. So yeah, we'll have to see about the SysKit logo. But yeah, they do make some great products, and it was like one of those great moments. Last week I was working with a client, and she was saying, "Hey, I've got this." She was also a consultant, and she's like, "Oh, I'm going to be taking on this new customer. We're going to be doing a bunch of things, and I need to get in there, and I need to figure out this, that, and the other." And she goes through this whole list of stuff, and I'm patiently waiting. I like to let the build-up happen. And then she's like, I just don't know how I'm going to do it all. And I pause, and I wait for a beat, and I'm like, SP.Kit does all that. She's like, no. And I'm like, it truly does. But don't believe me. I am the purveyor of lies. Don't believe me. Go out. They've got a 15-day trial. Just go install it. Prove me wrong. And I think it was probably 3 hours later, I got an email from her. It was all caps. She's like, oh, this thing is great. My work here is done.
I'm like how you built up the suspense with her. You got the pause for effect. Yeah.
I did. I get very excited like a little puppy when people start talking about the technologies I'm passionate about. So it was a lot of work to not just jump in but I let the tension rise. Oh yeah, it was good stuff.
I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, so if you haven't so she's working with on-prem SharePoint. SP.Kit's the way to go. For the cloud technologies, SysKit has some products for there too. Security management. I used that with another client last week or the week before, trying to figure out where people were getting permissions and how they had permissions, and the security manager was a great tool for that. So yeah, just check them out. Syskit.com. All the products have 15-day trials, so check them out. See what you think.
All right, so on to the show. I think speaking of products and the exact opposite in this case for me, and that is products that cost $1 gazillion and are probably not really worth $1 gazillion.
So I came into this podcast ill-prepared. I don't have any Apple products. And so I mostly don't pay attention to the Apple announcements because I don't have any Apple products. I forgot that you do, and so I did not watch any of the Apple announcements yesterday to prepare myself for discussing them.
Yeah, the good news is I didn't have to watch any of the announcements either because I have enough Facebook friends that are Apple fanboys that, all of the key messages are put out there. And one of the biggest ones, I think, was, Apple announced this new professional-only, Mac desktop, basically.
Okay. Okay. And they've kind of gotten away from that, right? They haven't put a new Mac desktop out for a while.
Yeah, and so like the articles are all like, Mac finally releases the computer we've all been waiting for.
I know, I've been waiting for it.
And its starting price is a measly $6,000 for.
Oh, that's nothing. That's like what, 2 iPhones,
Yeah.
roughly, yeah, or iPhones and AirBuds, yeah.
But and at $6,000 though, it doesn't come with a monitor. So the monitor
No.
they'd like you to bolt onto that their 6K Pro display.
Mm-hmm.
It starts at $5,000.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're not. They gotta make money. They can't give these things away,
I know.
right? Yeah.
And that monitor doesn't come with a stand.
Why would it? I mean, these Apple people are so entitled. The monitor come with a stand. It's ridiculous. Who does that?
So the stand is $1,000.
Okay, so good bottom base level stand. All right, all right. So.
I guess they just thought, we've got all these idiots to pay for lightning adapters for everything, right? They took away the headphone jack, so we had to buy adapters for all these things. And, paying $40 for that. And then like the new MacBook Pros or whatever, you have to basically buy an adapter to use that with anything. So they've just gotten consumers used to buying adapters and things. They're like, hey, let's see if we can also just force these people to buy a monitor stand to use the $6,000 or $5,000 monitor they bought.
Yeah, so I have 2 thoughts about that. You mentioned that the 6K monitor costs $5,000, an additional $1,000 if you don't want to lay it flat on its face on your desk. I think it's funny that the 6K monitor is its resolution and its price. I think that's amazing, and I think that does not bode well for increased resolutions as technology gets better. I think I see where the other thing is, I just imagine when they have these marketing meetings and they start talking about prices, if there isn't somebody in the room, they get this monitor, like, all right, this monitor MSRP of $29.99, and somebody in the room is like, no, wait a second. There's got to be a price at which we can there's got to be a price that people won't pay. Let's try $4,000. Somebody's like, no, you are way too. Keep going. Like they're trying to find that spot where people won't actually buy it anymore.
Yeah, and I guess to be fair, not that I really like to be fair, but so all of this stuff they're basically saying we're not targeting at you all you consumers that are watching this who are sitting there with bated breath. Really,
Right.
This is only targeted at professional music and video people. So if you're not one of them, you don't need this, right? Which is the epitome of, oh my God, I must have it because,
Yep.
We have a podcast that your mom, my mom, and Chewy listen to. Mm-hmm. So clearly we are professional, composers and music people. So we have to have this $25,000 setup.
That is great psychological marketing. This isn't for you. This is too good for you. You don't need this. Your work is not important enough for this. Works like a champ. Oh.
So kudos to them. They will probably sell a ton of them, and
Yep.
People will be just so. I guess the other thing to point out is that I'm not giving you the top price, right? This is the entry price for everything. So, for example, if that 8-core Xeon with a whole 32 gigs of RAM for $6,000. If you'd like 64 gigs of RAM, right? I mean, the prices go up exponentially. From the 6,000 is the bottom of the barrel. The computer barely turns on the price.
That is crazy. That is insane. And it's funny. So the machine that I'm on right now is a Dell that I bought, 4 years ago. I don't even remember the last time I bought. It also has 32 gig of RAM. So clearly it doesn't perform at the level that this other one does. But I've been using this thing for 4 years, and it cost maybe $1,000, maybe, if I talk myself into spending that much.
Yeah, supercomputer here, right? He's 2 years old. He was also about $1,000, and 32 gigs of RAM. He's got an SSD hard drive and a video card. Woo! Turns out it does everything I need as a professional podcaster and professional YouTube star. My PC is pulling double duty.
Yeah, that's insane. Oh, I can't wait. So is this? Did they do the Microsoft thing where they announced it, but yet it won't be available for 3 to 6 months, and or are people going to be buying them soon and talking about them?
I lost. I couldn't read any further. The prices, the price numbers, the jokes just went too rampant. I couldn't continue reading after that.
Okay, all right.
And it does have a sweet cheese grater design.
I noticed that. That is a questionable design. Yeah,
They also, just so you know, they brought back the ability to get wheels in the bottom because it weighs so much. If you need to be able to roll it around,
that
and
is
handles to
hysterical.
pick it up. So
Hysterical.
cutting edge.
That is. That's insane.
Yeah. So and so then to kind of take this and quit picking on the poor, Tim Cook who had to announce this thing, had to be like
With a
"This
straight
guy's
face.
voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am getting another house in the Bahamas.
Mm-hmm.
But no, so and really the reason this came to light for me, so I had kind of skipped over all the announcements. Who cares, right? Because I'm not buying Apple anything other than iPads for my children who like to lose them.
Yeah. And iPhones.
And iPhones, that's true. But so on Facebook, one of our friends kind of posted, "Hey, I'm so excited about all these announcements."
Yep. I saw that.
And so then another one of our friends said, "Hey, they've almost caught up to the PC world, right?" And so one of their big arguments was around the touchscreen stuff.
Yep.
And I mean, they went on. It was 51 comments last time I looked. Like it literally, Facebook said there's 51 more
Yeah.
comments.
Yep.
And it just, neither one could even remotely understand the other one's side, right? The one side is like, your touch is so terrible and stupid and you're an idiot for wanting to use touch. And the other side is like, hey, I like touch and it fits into my work style. And they couldn't accept
Yeah.
that the one liked the other. And it was just, I refuse to argue on the internet, right? We've talked about this before. You will occasionally go in and play with, feed the
Once in a
trolls.
while. Yeah.
But
Not often.
I wanted to jump in, but I just I hold steadfast to I will not argue on the internet, but it was terrible.
Yeah, I have looked at getting a new laptop in the last year. So obviously we get a PC. The touch stuff I don't find obligatory, but I definitely want it. I mean, there are times when it is the right thing. I don't use it exclusively because that makes no sense, but there are times when it makes perfect sense, and I'm glad it's there when I need it.
Yeah, I'm with you. For me, and it's not even something I think about, right?
No.
So, cause I went with the Surface Laptop 2. Still super happy with that purchase, by the way. But yeah, you're sitting there, you're fiddling, you're doing this, and it's just like, oh, I need to do, boop, and it's just instinctive, just to
Yeah.
reach up there and click the button or whatever.
Yep. Yep. I'm the same way, especially on planes or other places like that. You can't. Yeah.
The other interesting thing, though, that was really the point if I had added myself to the conversation.
If you would indulge yourself with arguing on the internet.
Yeah, but the kids, right? That's one thing I think that a lot of the people that were arguing, they couldn't understand, is like touch is just everyday life for my children, right? If they walk up to a monitor or a TV even, they just want to touch it, right? They don't even.
Yeah.
So the fact that, Apple completely is ignoring it on the device side, I think is cutting them out because it's just instinctive. They know to go touch. They know to pinch and zoom. It's just everything in the world should be touched to them. So
Yeah. So my 9-year-old, we just had, I can't remember what the context was, but she was talking about a laptop or a computer or something, and she made reference to it was one of those screens you couldn't touch. So the default value was a screen you could touch, and if it was one that didn't have it, you had to call that out specifically. Because phones and tablets and Chromebooks and my 5-year-old has absolutely tried to touch things on the TV. There's one TV that's hung low enough that he can reach it, and he's tried to touch. Like you have the Roku menu up, and he's like, "Oh, I want to watch this," and he touches the screen, and he's like, "Hey, this is broken, Dad. Can you fix this?" So yeah, so I agree with your point. I don't think that's hurting Apple any. Maybe for you to be, your point is that in 5 years it will be hurting them because kids won't be used to it moving forward.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's hurting them yet, but it was the one half of the argument who couldn't concede that touch was even like something that anyone
Had any value, period. Yeah.
Yes, it was a gimmick.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, I know we've talked about this a little before in the past too, but our youngest, right, both of them have never not had technology and touch technology in their lives, right? I
Right.
mean,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
my youngest, become a bad parent, got his first iPad on his second birthday,
You are a bad parent. That is a bit young. Yeah.
right? But I mean,
You can tell by his scholastic and athletic performance that has scarred him tremendously.
clearly it is rotting his brain. But that's but so you're right. So that generation, because our middle ones, well, my oldest, your middles, right? They had a couple of years of their lives where technology wasn't like every moment of their life,
Yeah. Well, and my yeah.
right? Because I mean, it was about because so I'm thinking about Grant, right? So he was 4 or 5. I guess he'd been almost 5 when he got his first iPad. And if you really think back to it, like they used to watch DVDs, like physically, get a disc and put in the DVD player. Everything wasn't on demand, and they weren't watching YouTube 24/7. And so they had a very small period of their lives where they didn't have any of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for most of them, I think for you're right, but I think they've forgotten about it. I mean, I think they don't
That's
even.
probably true.
Yeah, it's an interesting world, and I guess the other piece is not only are they at that spot, but for me, my kids don't get new technology much. Like so they were at the spot where my wife and I had gone through enough phones, like we have a couple of phones sitting around that are a few years old, and that's what they got to play with. They don't get to play with my phone or whatever. So yeah, so it was also that spot where we had enough of those sitting around where we could just like, all right, the kids get this phone. If they break it, who cares? So yeah, they're going to be used to that behavior. Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know. It's,
I'll be curious to see what the Apple folks, when that comes out, what it looks like,
yeah.
how it performs, how happy they are. So Shane and I were talking before the show that there's just not a lot of Microsoft content to talk about because one of our areas of expertise, SharePoint, they kind of went out. They fired all their shots here a couple of weeks ago, and now they're all just relaxing and trying to catch their breath. So there's not a lot of new content there. And then Shane's other love is Power Apps, and they've got a conference next week, so they're not talking about anything because they're So we don't have. So it's kind of what we're talking about some of these other topics.
Yeah.
But to your point, you think there's going to be some great Power Apps announcements next week?
I do, and I think, kind of looking at the blogs and some of the stuff that they've rolled out, especially this week, because one of the things we know from following the conference circuit for years is there's always a bunch of stuff that comes out like the week before, so that way on stage at the keynote they can be like, and we've already got released, right? It's been out for like 36 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one of the big things you'll see there is, there was a bunch of CDS related announcements in the last week or so. So I think you're going to see a major push on the Power App side around CDS and that type of stuff. Components. So we talked about in components right now in Power Apps is this ability to, take a set of controls and functions, wire them together, and then reuse them in your app. So the first one everyone builds is like a navigation component. So that way you can kind of maintain that navigation menu in one spot and then use it on 7 different screens, and life is great.
Good idea. And you were kind of cobbling something like that together before, weren't you? Didn't you have something similar to that?
Yeah, I definitely had some hacks to make. Not hacks, the wrong word, but I definitely come up with some ways to do some of that.
Yeah.
But so then as part of like build, they also kind of announced that a bunch of investments were coming in components around actually like being able to get in a Visual Studio and start to write your own components. So they have a vision of pro devs creating, or ISVs creating components that you can bolt into your app at some point. And so I think next week we'll see a lot of announcements in that space around more bringing that vision together, right? They kind of, between build and the blog, they've kind of sprinkled some pieces out there. And so if you put them together, I think you can get an idea what the story is going to be. But because I know what the story is going to be, I can't put them together for you. But yeah, so I think you'll see a lot more around components and the cool future for that, because there's just there's a big push into reusability and that type of thing.
Makes good sense.
Yeah, the other big thing that came out of build that we haven't talked about was they continue. So one of the things that Power Apps does is it democratizes development, right?
Sure. Yeah.
That's a whole citizen developer. Now instead of writing code, You grab some pieces, you write an Excel formula, boom, you got some work. And that's what I think one of the big wins for it, right? You know, the guy this morning I was talking to, he's a CFO, right? I was on for an hour with a CFO who's troubleshooting a flow to take data from Excel and write it into SQL, right? I mean, it's kind of cool stuff for a CFO to be, you know, nerding out on. But the reason I kind of bring that out is they also are starting to try and democratize some of the AI and machine learning components. So starting to figure out ways to trickle some of that. So instead of having to, you know, today to go consume that API, it does take a certain level of devish skills to do. But so I think they're going to continue to try and lower the point of entry for things like machine learning and artificial intelligence and stuff like that. And so I think we're going to see a lot more in that space as well, because they kind of started to paint that story. So hopefully next week we see some more of that show up.
Yeah, it was interesting. I don't know if you follow our common friend Kent Kingry. We were with him
Yes.
at Rackspace. So he was talking about. So he's on the Azure side. He's not a SharePoint person, and he made a tweet something a few days ago about how he thinks this idea of no code solutions is bogus. Nobody's ever written a solution without code. It's, you know, it's a buzzword. And then Jonathan Mast, also a similar friend or a common friend, said, no, on the SharePoint side, that is definitely a thing. You know, you can do that. And so then I chimed in, not arguing on the internet, but just saying, yeah, absolutely. From the SharePoint side, you can do a lot of that. And I've seen a lot of that. And then Kent replies back. He's like, but can, you know, but you can't write good, complex things without code. And I'm like, you've moved the goalpost here. First it was you can't write applications without code. Now it's you can't write complex applications without code. That's a different thing. And then we got into the whole, you know, what is code? Is JSON code? Is XML code? But I think we might be a little unique, or at least unique to what Kent sees, in that, yeah, somebody without computer science experience, without the understanding of how you build flow, and by flow I mean a small f, but, you know, code execution and all that. Somebody like that can sit down and start playing with Power Apps and build something that is important to their job and eases, you know, you've got a bunch of examples of that. And I think that is, so when you say it democratizes, it truly does. That sounds like a catchphrase, but it really is the case.
Yeah, no, and I mean, and I would take Kent's challenge any day of the week, right? Back to, I don't argue on the internet, but I have done some things that I'm not proud of, but, you know, with enough ifs and enough, you know, ifs and lookups and tracking of different states of things, I've written some stuff that would, you know, you could have written it better in pro code. I'm not doubting that in any way. But I wrote super complex stuff in this, you know, not real development language.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes, right, some of the coolest stuff I see is when I get on with these people that they're not IT. They, like I said, CFOs, you know, I've got a couple CFOs, I've got some CEOs, you know, people who you think about busy running the business. They go, they see this stuff, they get excited, they're like, hey, I can just solve my business problem, and they nerd out. Just yesterday we quoted it's a insurance agency something or another, right?
Sure.
And basically you're going to write them an entire agency onboarding, policy management, the whole platform for, you know, it's not six figures, right? It is not the hundreds of thousands of dollars that pro dev or packaged software would cost them. You know, for tens of thousands of dollars, they're able to write a complete agency management solution that does everything that they want. And that's the other big difference I think that we're seeing in Power Apps between, not necessarily pro dev, but between packaged software and, you know, these building your own apps, right? Because everyone's like, well, there's already an app for that. There is, but when you buy a third-party app, you have to bend your business processes to follow what the app will do.
Yep.
Right? When we go to Power Apps, we do completely opposite. And the light bulb for people is just amazing, right? You tell us the business process, we will make the app bend to your business process, and it's just a total game changer. It's fundamentally going to change things, and it already is. But I think, you know, 2 years from now, people are going to be like, packaged software, what? Maybe that's not really the case, but a number of ones, you know, the big construction company, They have $100,000 inventory and asset management a year subscription software they buy. They hate it. It barely does what they need. 100
Right.
grand a year. 10, 15 grand. They're rewriting the whole thing in Power Apps.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And you and I have talked about QuickBooks, where QuickBooks is the undisputed king of small business accounting and, all that. And we had this exact discussion, though not even in the context of Power Apps, about how I have trouble because I have to bend my process to the way that QuickBooks wants me to enter things. And
Yeah.
because I don't think the way that the person who designed the process in QuickBooks does, it results in me getting frustrated and not putting things in QuickBooks as quickly as I could. But if if it worked the way that my brain worked, it would be no problem whatsoever, but it doesn't. And you're like, well, yeah, we gave up on that. We wrote a Power Apps thing and it works great.
So, and democratize, that was the first time I'd ever said that, but, democratizing the tech is pretty cool. And,
Yeah.
and that's the other thing, because we know as all society, right, we continue to push the inclusivity, story forward, right, trying to be better about including everyone and accepting other people.
Sure.
And I think in its own way, Power Apps is doing a lot of that, right? Power Apps Flow, the Power Platform as a whole, I guess I should really say. But it's this idea that, now instead of this, solving my business problem is no longer a function of, some people in the back room in IT, right? Now it's IT and the business working together, right? That we're being able to include everyone into the story. And it's technical people, it's non-technical people, it's designers, right? But everyone's kind of got their place in this one big story. So instead of this tool set being just for one myopic set, it's including everyone. And I think it's a good story.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good place to be. I agree, and it's just getting better. So I'll be interested to hear what comes out of next week, what they've added. It's obviously a place that's getting a lot of attention and a lot of good attention. I mean, they're doing good things. So I'm looking forward to it.
No. Yeah, I guess to bring it back to SharePoint a little bit, I did release, so it's in the show notes here, but a video on working with SharePoint complex columns. So if you've ever built a Power App and you want to use like lookup columns or multi-select columns or people columns, those are very difficult in Power Apps. So I went ahead and threw out together a video that kind of walks and breaks all those down because, I would tell you that in reality, I'd prefer you probably go build your business solution in Azure SQL or CDS. But if you've got an existing solution you're trying to augment with Power Apps and SharePoint, there are tools. And so I kind of broke all that down for people.
Well, that's good. That has come up because a lot of our audience is people who have solutions in SharePoint. They're trying to slowly pull their way out of that. So they're going to have content in SharePoint. So that will be handy for them. It'll be handy for them. So more on the Shane talking front. You've got a note in here about your monitor, and tell the kids about that.
Yeah, so this morning someone was asking me about my setup, right? So before the show, Todd and I were going through like all the little goofy things that I have in here, like the little tiny level on top of my webcam, and
Yep.
right, because to do all the YouTube content and to try and do it well, but B, be able to quickly like go from working into this, kind of over the years, added piece by piece, made a pretty decent little setup.
Right.
And so someone was asking me about my desk, right? So I have a Very desk, right? The one that you can just grab the little handles and you can go from sitting down to standing up. It's all spring loaded, pretty straightforward little
Ball bearings and all that. Yeah, very. Yep.
Yeah, it works. But then he also asked about my monitor. And so I think you guys remember me bugging Todd probably about a year ago about the fact that I bought one of these 34-inch ultra wide, bloody curved. Yeah.
Yep.
He's so nice. Oh yes, barely get my arms around him.
He's talking about the monitor, not me. Yeah.
Anyway, so I bought the monitor about a year ago, and so the person asked for it, so I went and grabbed them the link, and I saw that the price is $5.99 on Amazon right now. I paid like $900 for it, so which is normal, right? Technology prices come down, but
Yeah.
at $5.99, I think my Dell ultra wide 3415W is a steal.
Yeah. So when Shane and I first talked about this, when he did this a year ago or whenever, the context was Shane and I have had multiple monitors, and by multiple we usually mean two identical monitors next to each other. We've had that for a long time now. That's not new. And so it was kind of an experiment to see if having one big monitor was better than having two smaller monitors. there are advantages to both. You're a year down that road now. What's your take on that?
Well, so I guess so I still love my big monitor.
Okay. Yep. That duly noted.
Full transparency though, there is a second small monitor to my left over there.
Okay. And what size are we talking? Small?
I don't know. He's probably 25, 28 inches, something like that.
So your small monitor is larger than my large monitors, but okay.
Well, I mean, we don't have that conversation right now, but
genetics. It's
yeah, but yeah. So the reason for that. So what I found is that one downside of the ultra wide monitor is a guy who has to share his screen on a very regular basis.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a pain in the butt.
Yep.
And so, you know, if you hover in size, I mean, I worked it out. I figured it all out. What I ended up doing was I ended up putting in a second monitor so that it would run at the more traditional 1920 by 1080 over here on the side. So anytime I have to do any type of desktop sharing, I share that monitor, and it just makes my life easier, like when I'm teaching classes or doing webinars or any type of scenario. Because a lot of times I know that a lot of people try to only share the app that they want to show.
Yeah.
But most of the time, right, I need to go between Chrome and then SQL Management Studio, Azure Storage Explorer, or maybe I got to show you an email real quick, you know. So for me, I need to be able to share the monitor. So I went ahead and put in a second monitor, and then I had to buy a fancy monitor stand and move it up and down because my desk moves up and down.
Right.
So I'm probably not the poster child for this was a cost-effective solution. But probably the biggest upside of the giant monitor is, you know, half to 2/3 of my day is spent either in Power Apps or Flow, physically writing, creating that type of stuff.
Right.
And so being able to go supersize and do that on the giant widescreen monitor, it's just one less thing to fiddle with. You know, let's face it, we're getting older.
Yeah.
Our eyes don't work as well.
Man, the last year or two have been hell in my eyes. Yeah.
So being able to build a Power App in this ginormous monitor is wonderful.
Yeah, and the screen sharing thing, I'm the same way as you. I do a lot of screen sharing, and I'm the same way. I'm popping between PowerShell and something in SharePoint and different instances of Chrome to show people here's what you said as the admin, here's what it looks like to the end user. So I find it much easier to share a screen. I don't have the big monitor, so I don't have the resolution issue. But what I do have is, you know, I got a million things going on every day. I've got just in the 30 minutes that this podcast has been going, I probably had 10 Teams pop-ups show up, which when I'm not doing something, I want those. But so I can't just share my entire one monitor because there's going to be all this, you know, detritus popping up that I don't want people to necessarily see. And so I think having a dedicated monitor to share is a great idea. And that's what I do now. I've got my second screen over here. I drag all the stuff over there that I'm with the customer on, and we're fine. So I think I would probably do a similar thing and try to figure out measurement wise. I'm looking at the monitor that you quoted is 32 inches wide. The screen is 14 inches high with the stand and all that is 20 inches high. And then figure out like where I could put one of my other monitors off to the side so I would have that sharing monitor if I needed it.
I would say overall, I've definitely been very happy with it. You know,
well, good.
Old eyes is probably half of it.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because this was a phenomenon that has been as old as computers, in that monitors last a lot longer than the computers they're attached to do. So I remember, you know, way back when I got out of college, bought my first computer, and I bought like a 17-inch CRT monitor. And it was the biggest. I mean, it probably took 3 people to carry it to my car. My car might not have. Matter of fact, my car was not big enough for the monitor in the box. I had to throw the box away at the store because it was just gigantic. And then I kept recycling computers, and monitors kept getting bigger and whatever, but that 17-inch monitor just kept plugging along. That thing lasted forever. So I never got caught up with monitor tech. And I'm at the same point now. I've had these two 23-inch monitors for, man, like I'm not even kidding, 5 or 6 years probably, and they work fine. There's no technical reason to replace them. They're great, except my eyes are getting worse. So yeah, that's why it's been tough.
Yeah, I couldn't even. I didn't realize you were only 23 inches. I couldn't imagine like trying to work all day on a 23-inch monitor. I think it's shoot myself.
I think it's 223s or 224s, but I'm pretty sure they're 23s.
Well, I mean, the other thing I would tell you is I still, in hindsight, wish I had bought the 38-inch. Right? It's almost twice the price.
Yeah.
But I mean, because once I got used to the 34-inch, I mean, there's a few days where, is this a good idea? As you kind of learn how to balance things out.
Right.
But once I got it, I was like, this is awesome. I wish I'd went even bigger. Who doesn't want more space? And like with XSplit right now, right, it works really well because I've got, on the one big monitor, I've got you, and then I've got XSplit, and I've got the OneNote and the Slack, and it's all on the one monitor. So I'm not bouncing between monitors or anything like that. The camera that you're using is sitting on top of that monitor. It's a good experience. I'm pro widescreen monitor.
Yeah, so it looks like so you've got the U3415W.
Yes.
It looks like the U3818DW is $1,000. So it is 38-inch monitor, higher resolution. It's also LCD as opposed to LED like yours is.
Oh, I didn't even know that was different.
Yeah. So yeah, you've been wearing me down. I can definitely see the advantages of it. The old eyes one is a big one.
So then speaking of old eyes, it looks like you went ahead and got yourself a new phone.
Yeah, old eyes got a new phone. I a couple of weeks ago got a Galaxy S10 to replace my Galaxy S8. And I'm happy with it. I didn't do it much because I needed to. My S8 was fine, but if we're talking about handing technology down, there's a whole big backstory there. So I got the 10. It's mostly been good. I'm not unhappy with it. But I think you and I talked about this a couple weeks ago, just typing in the passwords all the time. Mm-hmm. Like every time I think I've got it all figured out, there will be a thing. I'm like, oh, I haven't fired that app up yet. And I'll fire it up and I'm like, oh, username and password. But I'm getting there. I'm almost at the spot now where I'm going to wipe my old phone and introduce it to its next life. My two main frustrations with the new phone have been passwords, which I'm using a password management tool, 1Password, and I've just been diligent about that. I will not type a password into an app if I don't type it into 1Password first. I've just been super diligent about that. Of course, it won't matter again for another 2 years when I upgrade my phone, but so that, and then the notifications, just everything. I wish there was a spot somewhere in the phone where I could say the default is no noise. Let me know. Let me tell you if I want it to make noise, but the default is no, because I'm just constantly, every time a new app does a thing, I'm like, yep, that's great. I got the toast for it. No sound. But other than that, we're getting close. We're getting close.
And I'm imagining the battery, can you make it through a day on the one battery yet with the new one?
Probably, though I haven't really tested it because it does the wireless charging, and I've already had a wireless dock, so it just sits on my desk and it charges all day long. Probably. And that's one thing that I've just always been diligent about. I just always charge my phone every place I can, everywhere, because you just never know. But I haven't tested it out. I assume it's better.
See, and so I'm the opposite. So with my new one, because the battery is amazing again for at least another 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
I actually have been trying to go 2 days. So I only charge mine when it gets down to Madland at me. So and most of the time, unless I watch way too much on my phone, I can go 2 days on one charge.
Wow.
And it's, I guess, it's that Tesla mentality, right? I'm trying to think about the battery as something that I should care about. So I'm trying to, use it, burn it, instead of, sitting at 100% all day.
Well, it's funny because I go the other way, but also for the same reason. And that is because I'm never entirely sure where I'm going to need a bunch of battery, either on my phone or my car. So I always try to keep it topped off so that, oh my goodness, I got to go take a trip somewhere. Oh, well, I was letting my battery get down to 40%. Now I don't have enough range to do it. So both with my phone and my car, I keep them mostly topped off all the time to be ready for that.
And with your car, so where do you charge to? What's your standard?
So I normally charge it up to 70 or 80%, depends on what I take it back to after I've made a road trip. And then I don't normally plug it back in until it gets below 200 miles range. So once it gets 170, 180, then I'll plug it back in.
Gotcha. Yeah, and so I do keep the car plugged in, but I have it set to 200 miles, so whatever percent-wise that works out.
65, something like that.
Yeah, so I leave mine at just 200 miles all the time. But we leave it plugged in, right? And the nice thing with the Tesla is it has all the conditioning. It's trying to keep the battery healthy for it as long as you don't charge it. So But since the phones still have not decided to adopt this technology of, keeping themselves healthy, then I
Yeah.
in my head, my phone battery will last longer because I am using the whole thing now, but who knows?
Yeah, I might try it just to see. I know Lori's got the 10 as well. I don't know if she's done any battery tests with that. My 8 wasn't bad, but again, it was a 2-year-old phone, and so that the batteries will, and then it's just more apps. So I'm not convinced if the reduced battery life is because of the physical attributes of the battery, or just the longer you have a phone, the more crap you have running on it.
Well, I have an iPhone right there. They're notorious for just killing our batteries off to make us go buy new phones. So
No, they do that for very legitimate reasons that have nothing to do with planned obsolescence.
nope, not at all.
And people were not holding it wrong that time when it didn't work, though they put out a patch for that, even though there was nothing broken.
Yeah, well, and their new PC doesn't cost us.
Yeah, it doesn't cost 6 months' wages.
Good Lord.
All right, so the last one we have is your kids watching YouTube, which I would like to say that right now, because school is out here, I can guarantee you that at least 2/3 of my children right now are upstairs watching YouTube as we talk about kids watching YouTube.
No, it's a very common thing, and it's one of the things I still, as a parent, I have put my parent hat on. I struggle with YouTube, right? Because there's kids YouTube, but nothing's on kids YouTube because no one wants to mark their content that way, and not
Right.
ads, right? Who wants to make content without ads?
Nobody.
So the kids don't want kids YouTube; they want regular YouTube, and there's a lot of great's a tough word. A lot of content they really want to see that is appropriate for them out there.
Yeah.
But man, YouTube can get dark real fast.
Yes.
And like the other day, they were watching. Basically, they went from like Dude Perfect style videos, people throwing frisbees into basketball goals from a mile away, to all of a sudden they got into like funny videos. But then the funny videos got into like doing like gross, stupid stuff, like eating things you shouldn't be, and you start to realize that that's probably not good, right? Even though in the video they're like, oh yeah, kid, don't really drink the bleach, wink wink. Like, what the hell, dude? Why you gotta say stuff like that?
Yeah, either my kids have stumbled onto that less than yours have, or I've just noticed it less than you have. But I've come across that a couple of times, but it hasn't been a systemic thing like it has with yours. And I don't know if that's the difference between boys and girls, or again, I'm just not as noticing it, or I don't know.
Yeah, well, the only time we really catch it though is like, so if they're watching on their devices, we basically have no idea what they're watching. We tell them we do, but we don't really know. But it's when they occasionally go, use the Roku to watch it on the big TV that you're like, oh, well, you made me watch this. I'm going to pay enough attention to realize that this is stupid. Guy was stinging himself with bees one day. It's like, no. You're just an idiot, and I don't need my kids to be idiots. So, I don't know. It's
That's funny.
my random thoughts for the day is YouTube. They need to find a middle ground with YouTube. I'm sure they're never going to, but
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've the other thing is I want my kids to watch less YouTube, but they're doing okay. Like they go outside and play all the time. Like we're always trying to figure out whose house they're at and whose yard they're destroying at any given time because they're always outside playing with their friends. I've got little summer workbooks for them that they're going through. I mean, they're doing so. I mean, I inherently feel like them sitting down and watching YouTube for a couple hours is bad, but they seem to be doing other stuff too. So torn.
yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, my kids. I think we're down to an hour a day per kid, and it's
Pug.
yeah, it's good, right? I mean, because they get out, they do, and at the same time, right? You don't want them to be the kids that are sheltered from everything, right? And so like their friends are at school talking about this or that, and they're like, "What's that? I'm not allowed to see technology," right? You don't want them to be that kid. So
No.
so I'm okay with it overall. I just wish there was a middle ground for less things that I consider stupid. Like when they're watching the kids play video games, that seems reasonable. Or
Yeah.
watching soccer highlights, or Grant spouting off some scientific fact that he watched. I'm like, oh, yay. But then all of a sudden it's like, oh, hey, Dad, have you ever had a bee beard? No, I've never been like, let me get a bunch of bees on my face.
Yeah, I've never had a beard, period, of any sort.
True
Thanks for
story.
bringing it up.
I mean, I see you did shave. So another month from now we can joke again about you needing to shave.
Yeah, I shaved like 3 days ago. I don't remember when that was.
Joe must have smacked you and said, hey, it's not going to look any better, buddy.
Yeah, this is as good as it gets. Oh, yeah. So we've got the different networking things going on. I don't know if there's any kind of analytics we could have on that would tell us what YouTube videos are watching, but I don't know. All right. Well, I think that was all of the non-content content that we had for this week. We do have a couple of speaking things about that next week on the 11th. I think that's next Tuesday night. I'm going to be speaking for the Mississippi PowerShell user group. Going to be doing that remotely. Mike Robbins reached out to me and asked me about that, so I'll be doing that. I don't know if anybody can watch that stream or not. I need to email Mike about something else, so I'll find out about that. You can check that out. If that is going to be available to anybody, I will put it on my blog and people can watch that. Going to be talking about Office 365 and PowerShell. That story, you and I delivered a bunch of that 2 weeks ago. I already have more things to add. I mean, it is just relentless in how fast that all changes.
It's a lot of work to keep up these days, and really what I'm worried about with PowerShell. So, are you going to have a little fun with MI, crooked letter I, crooked letter, the whole like way to spell Mississippi? I feel like there's some PowerShell fun you can have with the word Mississippi.
I'm guessing that has been done a bazillion times. They're going to be like, oh, the guy that makes fun of how the state's spelled. Oh, that's hysterical.
I mean, have you ever not repeated a joke in your life?
Sometimes. I know that it would not appear so by how often I do repeat jokes, but there have been a couple of times when I've not indulged myself.
Just think about the poor people who have watched all 434 episodes of this. How many times have they heard the same jokes?
What you said, 434? So I'm guessing some number. We probably said the same joke twice in one podcast. Yeah, we're
Real close.
But I'll be doing that, and so so watch that. But again, Shane and I have said a bunch of times, if you've got a user group or something that you want us to present at remotely, we're happy to do that. Especially if it's content we've already got mostly written. So reach out to us for that. Or if you're a user group and looking for people, we're happy to talk about that. And see if we can get you some more people to speak for that. And then while I'm doing that, you'll be flying home from something yourself.
Yeah, so speaking of content that I have not pre-written.
Or written, period.
Shut up. I got like 3 more days. No, 1 more day. It's due tomorrow. Anyway, Microsoft Business Application Summit, June 9th through the 11th. I will be there. I'm teaching App in a Day all day with Brian Dang on Sunday the 9th. On the 10th, I am doing a session on, I've written hundreds and hundreds of Power Apps, and these are things I want you to know, which will be very interesting because I keep like writing it and then rewriting it, and then it's hard. Because you only get 60 minutes, too. It's not 75 minutes, which throws off my mojo.
Oh, yeah.
And then on Thursday, I'm doing a session on migrating Power Apps and InfoPath, which I haven't even thought about at all yet, if we're being honest. I'm trying to get I've done hundreds of apps, and these are things you need to know. That's the one that's like my child. Like I feel like I need to get right and massage so I can then reuse it 100 times for the next 4 years. So that one's getting a lot more love. The InfoPath is a 20-minute theater session. I can talk about it for 20 minutes right now if you'd like to hear.
Yeah, I think the fact that you think you're going to use this content for more than about 3 weeks is just hysterical.
Shut up, Todd. Some of the slides will stay, like what my name is.
Vanity slide, most of that'll, Mm-hmm.
So, all right, I think that's it, though.
I think that it is. So thanks, everybody. Hopefully next week when Shane gets back from the business application thing, he'll have some updates for us. I promise to work on something fun. I've been doing a bunch of PowerShell work for a couple of customers, so I'll have some stuff to report with that. I've been doing some fun things with that with Office 365 and migrations and modernizing. It's been site designs, all that. It's been a lot of fun. Just haven't been able to figure out a way to talk, a coherent conversation about it. But a lot of interesting things there. And I want to give a shout out. Jeff Hicks isn't in the chat room right now, but he's been giving me a lot of help. And I'll get a bunch of the way, and he'll give me that little piece that I need to get me the next way. He's been invaluable.
And mocks you accordingly as he does it?
Yes, when I don't have Shane sitting around to mock me, I can always rely on Jeff to tell me how stupid my idea was and how I've taken a very trivially easy thing and made it very much more complicated than it needs to be. And probably, made it slower in the process. So I've got that to look forward to.
I do that to Power Apps people all the time too, so good to know.
Yep.
Jeff and I,
So,
kindred spirits.
yeah, oh, yeah, yeah. So it'll be, so I'll have some PowerShell things to announce.
Cool.
Also. All right, everybody, chat room will stick around for a while. You'll be back next week. I'll be here next week, I think. So we will see you all next week.